The water in the baptismal font ripples as my 8-year-old son steps down the stairs, beaming with excitement. His white clothing seems to glow, and I can see my own childhood reflection in his eyes. As his father, I'm about to baptize him into what we believe is God's one true church on earth. It should be one of the proudest moments of my life. But beneath my smile, questions churn like the disturbed water. In his eyes, I see pure faith, the kind that moves mountains and parts seas. In my heart, I feel the weight of generations of belief and the crushing responsibility of either preserving or disrupting that legacy. I'm Brother Buzz, and this is Study Faith with AI. Son, what in the world are you doing in my closet? I jumped, startled by my father's voice. The door swung open, flooding my small hiding place with light. There I was, an 11-year-old boy, kneeling on the floor of my father's office closet, sweat beading on my forehead, arms neatly folded in desperate prayer. I wanted to pray, I stammered, my face burning with embarrassment. I had just finished reading the Book of Mormon cover to cover for the first time. Those familiar words in Moroni chapter 10 had stirred something in me. Ask God, the eternal Father, in the name of Christ, if these things are not true. I wanted my own sacred grove moment, my own burning bush, my own mini first vision. Not literally, but figuratively. After all, Joseph Smith was only 14 when he walked into those woods seeking answers. I was 11, not that far off. If God could speak to a farm boy in 1820, why not to me in my father's closet? My father sat me down on the couch in his office, concern melting into understanding. Were you praying about the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith's first vision? He asked gently. I nodded, unable to meet his eyes. And what did you feel? I feel like it's true, I said, both relieved and slightly disappointed. There had been no pillar of light, no divine personages, no voice from heaven, just a quiet feeling inside my chest. Dad smiled and hugged me. That's the Holy Ghost, son. That's how most of us receive our testimony. In my father's closet that day, sweating and praying, I was reenacting in my own small way what I believe Joseph had done. I was seeking divine confirmation, a witness, a testimony. What I received was so much quieter, so much more ambiguous than the dramatic theophany Joseph described. But it was enough to satisfy my father, enough to satisfy me, at least for a while. Growing up near Palmyra, Joseph Smith's story wasn't abstract history. It was practically in our backyard. At least once a year, our family would visit the sacred grove, that hallowed woodland where a teenage boy's prayer allegedly changed religious history forever. I'd walk those paths, running my hands along the bark of witness trees that had stood for over 2 centuries, trying to imagine what it would be like to see God the Father and Jesus Christ standing before me, their brightness and glory defying description. I'd close my eyes, hoping for even a fraction of that divine encounter. The silence of the grove was always profound, interrupted only by birdsong and the occasional whispers of other reverent visitors. When I was 14, the same age Joseph was during his vision, I felt a particular kinship with him. I tried to picture him, confused by the religious fervor of his day, retreating to those woods with a simple question: which church is right? How brave, I thought, to ask such a direct question. How remarkable to receive such a direct answer. But unlike Joseph, my questions came in whispers, not shouts. I never dared to ask which church was true. I already knew the answer. I had been taught it from birth. Instead, I asked for confirmation of what I already believed, what I was expected to believe. Back then, I never considered that there might be multiple accounts of Joseph's vision, each with different details. I never questioned why God would choose a treasure seeking, yet spiritual teenager from upstate New York to restore his church. I never knew that the earliest members of the church had never heard about young Joseph's vision of God and Jesus Christ in a grove of trees. My understanding of the first vision was as carefully curated as the pristine paths through the sacred grove, designed to lead visitors to predetermined conclusions, intended to be a model for our own spiritual epiphany, and to legitimize the marvelous work and a wonder of our faith. As for the protesters who lined the roads of the Hillcomore pageant each year, holding signs challenging our beliefs, they were just part of the expected opposition. After all, if Satan tried to stop Joseph from praying in the grove, surely he tried to stop us from believing Joseph's story. Yet, as I grew older, I couldn't help but wonder, what was Joseph really looking for in those woods? What did he actually see? And how has that story evolved over time to become the foundational narrative of a global religion? As I grew older, I came to understand that everything in Mormonism hinges on that moment in the sacred grove. President Gordon B. Hinckley put it plainly when he said, "Our whole strength rests on the validity of that vision. It either occurred or it did not occur. If it did not, then the work is a fraud. If it did, then it is the most important and wonderful work under the heavens." It's a striking binary, truth or fraud, divine or deception, revelation or invention. There's no middle ground when it comes to the first vision. The church itself recognizes this, building its entire foundation on the testimony of a teenage boy who claimed to see God and Jesus Christ face to face. Hinckley further emphasized this, saying the first vision stands unique in all of recorded religious history. He declared it more significant than even biblical theophanies, more definite than the baptism of Jesus or the transfiguration witnessed by Peter, James, and John. That's the weight my small closet prayer carried in my mind. I wasn't just seeking personal comfort. I was seeking confirmation of the pivotal event upon which my entire religious world depended. In Season 3 of Study Faith with AI, we'll explore Joseph Smith's first vision. We'll examine all the accounts, not just the canonical 1838 version found in the Pearl of Great Price, but the earlier accounts from 1832, 1835, and others that tell surprisingly different stories. What did Joseph Smith actually experience in the grove that spring morning? How did his telling of the story change over time? What historical and cultural forces shaped both the experience and its retelling? And what does it mean for Latter-day Saints today if the foundational vision of their faith isn't exactly what they've been taught? I'm Brother Buzz, and this is Season 3 of Study Faith with AI, The First Vision. If you find value in this exploration, please like, share, follow, and consider becoming a subscriber. Your contributions help keep these conversations going and allows us to maintain the highest quality production. You can find all the details at studyfaithwithai.com. Thank you for being part of this journey.